Alright guys, what's good with y'all? So y'all probably want to get into some drifting with your new Logitech wheel, probably, or some Thrustmaster budget wheel that you just got, and you got CarX drifting, right? So this is going to be the perfect video for you because I'm going to be breaking that video down in 3 parts. There's going to be the settings. I have a Logitech G920, so the settings work for me. It will probably work for you if you have the same wheel, but if you don't have the same wheel, you might have to mess around a little bit to get the perfect feel. And then the second part would be tuning. That part is going to be probably the longest because I'm going to go the most in depth with tuning, because it is really important to have a good tune for your car when you're drifting with no assist and you have a wheel. And then last part will be drifting. Drifting will be the third part, but it will also have 3 of its like little parts: getting into a drift, holding it, and transitions. That would be the 3 parts of that third final part. But anyways, let's get started. So this is the first part, wheel settings. This is pretty important. So if you're going to look at the top, you're going to see your tabs right here. You got single player, multiplayer, and settings. This is where you're going to go. So these all really don't mean anything. You don't got to worry about them. It's personal preference. Controls. This is where you want to go. So when you get into controls, you want to start with advanced settings. So you're going to see over here, you got some pretty advanced settings. Don't worry, it's really not that complicated. So gearbox is just your shifter, you know. You're going to want to set that on manual. You won't want to drift with automatic. You really don't have that much control over your gears. Don't really have control over your power that much. So you're going to drift with manual. Clutch, I have this on automatic because I don't have an e-brake. So instead, I use my clutch as the e-brake. Which is kind of sounds goofy, but it works. Because in this game, you just have to full throttle to get that wheel spin. You really don't have to use clutch to wheel spin your car. So I just have that set as wheel brake, or as I just have my e-brake set as clutch. Sorry about that. Steering wheel assist, you want this off. You can have it on, but that defeats the purpose of you having a wheel, basically, because you need a counter steer and all that stuff. You know, with wheel assist on, you really don't. Controller assist, don't worry about this unless you're playing controller, but I will make a controller tutorial on another video, because there are different things you have to tune for a controller to work. And the steering wheel angle, you can drift with 900, but I recommend starting with 720 degrees of steering angle. This is your steering wheel, so 720 degrees is going to be basically a full rotation from your start. So once you have your wheel centered and you rotate it 360 degrees like this, it's going to lock right here. It's going to be full 360 degrees. So if you start from this lock, you can rotate it 2 times, which is your 720 degree of full rotation. So that's how it's calculated, not this. This is not 720 degrees. 900 degrees would go out further like this. But 720 degrees is the best to start with. You can pull it up later after. You can bump it up to 900 later if you want. And if you got pretty good at 720, but I'm doing 720 degrees for you guys because that's what I started with, and I would recommend starting with this as well. 520, you don't want that. 360, you don't want that at all, because you slightly turn and your whole car just flips around. So 720 is the best to start, and then bump it up to 900 if you want. Controller vibration, obviously, doesn't affect your wheel. Wheel force feedback, so this depends on your steering angle. If you have 900, I would recommend between 0.9 and 0.8. If you have 720 degrees of steering wheel angle, I would recommend 0.7 to 0.6. So I'm going to use 0.7 because obviously that's what I had it set to. Dead zone is when the wheel starts to, when you turn it, when it actually starts to turn. So if I set this up to like 5, I'll have to turn it a few times until it actually registers. So I would set it to 0, so it's the most accurate. And all these, you just want to bump up to 1. There's really not much explaining to do. You just need these all at once to have your wheel work perfectly. You really don't have to worry about these at all. You just bump them up to max. So then we're going to get to connected devices. Right here, I got my Logitech wheel. I'm going to open this up. And you already set your wheel steering angle to 720 degrees, but you also have to set it here, so it locks at 720 degrees. So what you're going to do is you want to click calibrate. There we go. So right now it's set to 1,000. I guess my Logitech wheel has 1,000 degrees of rotation, but you want to click range and then slightly rotate it until you get to 720 degrees. I overshot that, so let's click range again. Restart it. You want to slowly move it up to 720 because this is going to be your full lock. And then you want to go the other way as well. So full lock at 720 degrees. And boom. Just like that, you're done. And so when you rotate, it's going to fully lock at 720 degrees. So it's going to bounce like this, you know, like the way it does right here. It's going to do it at 720 degrees. Your wheel will do it automatically for you. And also handbrake. So what I would also do for handbrake is to use your clutch, because you already get wheel spin from full throttling, even in like low horsepower builds. So I would just use your clutch as a handbrake. It's easier to control your car. You can angle it. You can maintain the drift longer as well with that e-brake. So I keep it on clutch, you know, and it's pretty easy to have both wheels on the wheel, and instead of moving one off, you know, you can use your clutch as an e-brake. But yeah, these are the settings. You can go into the game and try them out. Make sure your force feedback works. So what the heck? Okay, there we go. It's working. So if it doesn't work, you literally just want to unplug it and replug it back in, and it should work. So let's get into a drift real quick. So this is stock tune, so it's probably not going to drift very well. But after you test your wheel out, let's get to tuning. So tuning. Oh, this is going to take a while. It's really long. Alright, so once you get into tuning, what I would recommend is getting this specific car right here. So you want to go down to garage, you want to go down to catalog, and when you're in catalog, you're going to go down to class 2 vehicles, and right here is going to be the Phoenix NX. This is really just a 240SX, but the game calls it Phoenix NX. I believe it's like $35,000 in the game, so you can grind up with a starter car right here with just your controller. And I had to turn my webcam off because you guys need to see all the sliders and stuff, but just drift with this with controller, put that assist on, and just go at it, get that money up, and then you can get the Phoenix NX. You can level up sometimes as well, but this car is the best starter car. It's better than all of these right here. But yeah, once you buy this car, you want to go down to mods. You want to buy the ultimate mod. You can buy the drift mod, but it is way too much horsepower for what it is. I would just get the ultimate mod. Just get the ultimate mod because you can tune the engine, so you can tune it down to your preferred horsepower. And I like drifting with like around 300 to 400 horsepower. It's perfect for me. So once you select that mod, you get that mod. I think it's going to cost you like at least all 100k. It's really not that much money. It's like 10, maybe even 5 minutes of grinding. Once you get all that stuff, you're going to want to go into your dyno stand. So now you're looking at all these sliders. You're probably like intimidated by it, but it's really not that big of a deal. First of all, I'm going to tell you these 4 sliders right here don't mean anything. You can leave this pretty much stock. I tried messing around with it and I couldn't find a difference in them. I do know what they do and I know the difference, but they really don't have a big difference in this game because this game is just an arcade. So don't worry about these 4 sliders is what I'm going to tell you first. So I'm not going to show you guys what to do with these. I'm not going to explain them to you because there's really nothing much to do with them. And then you can also see at the top, you're going to see your categories. You have suspension, wheels, engine, trans, and brakes. So trans and brakes, you just keep the stock. It's already good. Engine, wheels, and suspension is what we're going to worry about at the moment. So there's also a good way to, there's also a good order to tune in these categories. So first, I start out with wheels, then suspension. I finish off with engine last. So let's begin. Wheels. We're going to start with wheels first. So I'm going to explain each of these categories to you guys as well and what they're for. So we got front rim and rear rim diameters, just rim diameters. You guys probably know what it is. It's literally the size of your rim, the diameter. If you guys had geometry, you guys know what the diameter it is from the furthest side of the circle to the other furthest side, just right across, just like that. Well, circles don't have sides, but a point, I guess. It's just a line across the circle, the diameter of the circle. I would turn this up to 19 for this car. Really depends. I would not have them not obnoxiously huge. But it doesn't affect your drifting too much. But don't rice out your cars, you know. That's goofy. But rim diameter really just increases the size of the rim. Now we got the tire widths. I would bump up the front tire width 265 millimeters, and the rear tire width all the way. Therefore, there's as much surface area on the ground as possible. And as you can see, there is some camber on this tire. We want it pretty flat, so we're gonna have to turn that down. But yeah, tire width, just the width of the tire. It's really not that difficult. Now, the tire pressure. So tire pressure is obviously how much tire pressure there is in the game, or inside the tire. I wish this was in PSI, but it's in kPa. That's whatever though. I just opened up a Google converter and I did the PSI for it. So for rear tire pressure, I believe it was 60 PSI, which is, oh my bad. You want to have rear tire pressure lower than the front, you know, because you want that good mix between grip in the rear but still slip. So when you throw your rear end out into a drift, you can still hold it and you won't spin yourself out. But there's also not too much grip to where you can get the needed wheel spin to drift, right? So I believe 200, it's like 179 kPa, I believe, or 176 or 179 is like roughly 25. So we're gonna keep it at 179 kPa for the rear, and the front we're gonna bring it up a little. 106 or 7 is like 30 psi, because your front tires are for steering. Obviously, you want some grip on those, not too much. You don't want your front tires to have more grip than the rear, because you don't want your front to be an axis for your rear end to turn around. You know, you don't want to have that, because you can also spin yourself out that way. So yeah, tire pressure is also good for grip. So is wheel adhesion. Wheel adhesion is basically just tire compound. It's how much grip your tires, the surface of your tires, have with the asphalt or the cement or the road. Keep this at 100. Obviously, lower will be lower and higher will be more grip. You want to keep it at 100 because it looks really smooth and it is a lot easier to control your car this way. It's really hard to break out of it's really hard to break your car into a wheel spin with higher grip. So just keep it at this 100. It's good like that. All right, wheel track. So wheel track is how far your wheels are away from the body. So when you increase it, your wheels go further out. You decrease it, your wheels go more in, right? This is for, handling and stuff. I really don't see how it, works in this game. I try to mess with it. It really doesn't matter. So you can just do it for your sake. Don't have it too far out though. It is goofy looking, but yeah. The distance between the wheels. In real life, it would make the car wider. So, it'd be wider. It won't be as thin. So you can control it better. I think. I don't remember. All right, and tire profile. This is really how thick your tires are. I would just turn up the front 5% so it matches with the tire profile in the rear. And that's about it. Really just makes your tires thicker, not wider. So yeah, these are all the sliders do and stuff. So after you got that information, you guys want to go down to suspension. Before we raise the suspension, you want to go to the stiffness, right? You want to make the rear stiffer than the front, about twice as much. So we're gonna do that about twice as much. And then you can adjust the spring height. So how do you adjust the height? Really all up to you. Its height does actually matter in this game. I did some testing with it. Height and the spring stiffness has a lot to do with like speed in this game when I tested it with my cars and stuff. But really high, I believe my tests, like, you actually went faster when it was higher, and when the springs were softer, you also went faster. But that's with the drag racing. With drifting, not too big of a deal. Just try not to have your tires go into your body because that looks goofy, obviously. But stiffness does play a role. If the rear is more stiffer, it'll be pushing more into the ground because of the weight of the car. That will give you more grip as well. So you should do that. Add more stiff tires and softer front tires, because if they're soft, when you're drifting, and you angle it, you don't want it so stiff to where like it's not touching the ground enough. You want it like slightly on the ground. You don't want it too much, force pushing into the ground. So you're gonna have it pretty soft, right? And that's about it. Dampers, don't worry about these. They really don't do anything about drifting. Front toe and rear toe, you want to have this as 0. It just pushes out the toe of your car basically. So if you look at the top, and let me do it for you real quick to show. If I do this, oh my god, if I can show you quickly. As you can see, the front side of my car gets pushed into the body. If you see that slight angle, you don't want that. It doesn't benefit you in drifting. Let me adjust this to 0. So yeah, don't worry about that too much. Camber. All right, so camber, you want to have pretty like 0 camber to the rear. You want as much surface area touching the floor. For front camber, you can bump this between -3 all the way to -7. I'll keep it around -6 for me. This just angles the bottom of your wheels outward. If it's negative, you see it angles the bottom of your wheel outward. So, outward. Oh my god, I'm just like messing up. All right. So as you can see this, you can see some tire deformation on the ground, which is really cool. I like how the game accounts for that. But this tire or this camber level right here, don't do this. You don't want to be this. This is stupid and it makes you look goofy. You will get stuck on pebbles. Literally, you will get stuck on pebbles. Don't do this. You look goofy. Thank God the game doesn't allow you to do more than -20. But yeah, -6 is for me. Let me explain why. Because when it's cambered and you turn, it'll be like more tire on the ground when you're turning. So that's pretty good. And it'll just give you more grip as well while counter steering. So yeah, that's that. Anti-roll bars. All right, let's do this. Anti-roll bars. So how do I explain this to you? They're just sway bars. So if you ever were in the car and you turned a corner too fast, the car kind of was angled. It felt like it was being thrown that way as you're cornering. That's your sway bars too weak. If your sway bars are stiffer, the car will stay more straight and not as, it won't sway to the left or right as much if it's stiffer. So stiffen the rear. Okay, you don't want that swaying too much. Because if it sways, one of the rear tires can lift up and you lose, some traction. Front, you can have it about a third or half, and that's pretty much it. It's really not too crazy. Caster. All right, caster is kind of weird in this game because it's also for Forza 2, and also for different games. But caster also messes around with how heavy or how light your wheel feels. So I would adjust caster to where this tire that's angled, out, the tire that is angled out, not the one that's angled in, the one that's angled out is flat on the ground. So about 4. So when you decrease the caster, what it does is it also makes your wheel feel lighter. So if you want a stiffer wheel, you can increase this caster, but I like mine pretty good at 4. So yeah, that's about it. It's really not that difficult to explain. Ackerman angle. Okay, this thing, it's actually really important. It's way more important than I thought it was. Keeping the Ackerman angle at 100 is actually not the best idea. For some cars, yes, but because of this car is can take a heavy angle. It can angle like crazy when it's drifting. So Ackerman angle, what it does is, if you look at the tires closely, it spreads them out. It makes them uneven, which is actually pretty good. I drift with 0 Ackerman angle because when drifting with 100%, you can actually counter steer too much, and it's pretty difficult to hold a drift. When you accidentally throw your rear end out too much, it is pretty difficult to recover. So having this at 0% on some cars is actually really good. For other cars, sometimes it won't be too much of a difference actually, but for cars like this that love to sway the rear end out a lot, you can maintain a really sharp or really tight angle, I would recommend setting it to 0 because it's so much easier to catch your drift when counter steering. So yeah, that's that. And max steering angle, keep this at 58, 57, or like 59. You can go all the way to 60, but I like it at 58. It's perfect for me. This basically is how angled your tires go. You can have it to the lowest 50 degrees or to the highest 60. I like it at 58, so I'm gonna keep it at 58. And that's about it for the suspension. We got the wheels covered, and now the engine. So you can pump your engine up all the way. Let me show you how much horsepower this car can take, dude. So that's a lot of horsepower. Too much for drifting, personally. What I do is I pump down my turbo pretty low. Rev limiter, I go to around 7,500 RPM. Rev limiter, decrease the engine tune-up. Keep that shit at 0. Let's go to 2,500. And then max torque, you want to turn that down a little bit as well. It's like 333 horsepower, and boom. This is basically what I do for this car. You can have it around 300 horsepower to like 500 horsepower, but I keep it at 300 to 400 horsepower because it is easier to control your car when it is lower horsepower, and slower drifts look cooler anyways. So yeah, that's engine tune, really not difficult. You guys know what turbochargers are. That's the thing that comes in a Supra stock. Supra has 12 turbochargers stock. You know, turbo air pressure is, you know, how much force the turbo, you know, pushes into the car. Air wise, you know what RPMs are. It's how fast the engine is spinning. Revs. Torque. It's how many foot-pounds the, you know, engine gives off. And then engine tune-up is just basic mods and shit. So that's about it. So yeah, now that we're done with tuning, let's get to the fun part, the drifting. So yeah, this is gonna be fun. All right, guys. So this is gonna be the third and final part of this tutorial on how to drift in CarX drift racing. So now we're literally gonna be doing drifting. All right. So drifting is going to be split up into like 3 different parts. There's going to be entering, or your entrance, maintaining your drift, and transitions. Okay, so first thing first, we're going to talk about different ways to enter drift. So I believe there are only like 3 different ways. Actually, I think there are 4 different ways. There's shifting your weight, e-brake, clutch kick, and actually, yeah, I think those are about the 3 ways. I don't know if there's a 4th way, but those are the only 3 ways I know. There's clutch kicking, e-brake, and just straight up shifting your weight into it. I'm gonna show you all those drifts. I won't be able to show you clutch kick, but I will explain how clutch kick works. So we're gonna start with that one first. So I have a manual or automatic clutch because I don't have an e-brake, right? And e-brake is more important in this game than clutch because you can get wheel spin pretty easily in this game. So I'll still explain how clutch kicking works. So how clutch kicking works is when you get up to speed, you would turn into your drift, click the clutch, and slam the throttle, and you know, as you do that, what happens is you build up a lot of like power and torque, and then once you drop the clutch and you're throttling, all that power and torque makes your wheels spin because, you know, the gears connect and stuff. Your clutch is disconnected, so now your gearbox has power, which goes to your, you know, drivetrain, and then you get wheel spin because all that build up power makes your wheels start spinning. That's basically how clutch kicking works. You go up to speed, you go to a drift, you know, you throttle kick your clutch and then let go of clutch, and pretty much that's how you can get into a wheel spin to kick your rear end out. But I don't have a clutch. As you can see, my clutch pedal does go up. Oh yeah, these, I forgot to explain about the things you see at the bottom of my screen next to my speedometer are my pedals. So my brake is red, my clutch is yellow, my dark red is e-brake, and my green is throttle, and steering obviously. So as you can see, clutch is activated because I do have manual clutch, but when I speed up, so because I have my clutch pedal as my e-brake as well, if I lightly press on my clutch pedal, my clutch goes all the way, but my e-brake isn't fully activated, so I can still like do a little bit of clutch kicking, just a little light tap, and get myself into a clutch kick. What I really like about this game is because you can make one pedal clutch and e-brake. Light tap with that pedal, you get clutch, and then a little bit more tap, you get the e-brake. But anyways, that's how you clutch kick. Basically, you're going in, you throttle up, press that clutch just enough to get, revs all the way up, you let go, and then your wheel starts spinning. Then you turn into the direction you want to go in, and then that's how you go into that kind of spin. Let's see what's going on. Now we're going to talk about shifting your weight. So shifting your weight, you don't use clutch. You literally just get your car to spin out, and you just catch it from spinning out. So let me show you. So when you're going fast, you're basically going to throw your car rear end out into a drift. So you turn one angle and then turn the other angle, and you throw your rear end out, getting yourself into a drift. This is a little bit more difficult. As you can see, I was a little crusty with the one I did. But yeah. Full throttling will actually help. I didn't full throttle. Saying you can throw yourself into a drift. And then, yeah, that's the first way. You literally basically shift your weight really fast. So as you're going fast, you steer one angle and then throw yourself the other way. Just like that. So that's also another way to get your rear end sticking out. And then the third way to get your rear end sticking out is my favorite way, is literally e-braking in. So let's get up to speed. Oh, what the heck. So let's get up to speed. Once you're going fast, you e-brake, and boom, you're basically in the drift. And e-brake also, it's like so much better in my opinion to use, because like as you can see, I can maintain a pretty straight drift with the e-brake, slow myself down with e-brake while also maintaining a drift. It's really nice. So yeah, e-brake is my favorite way to go into a drift, because you literally just e-brake right in. And also because e-brake is clutch, kind of doing some clutch kicking when I e-brake. But when you're going fast and you just e-brake, it's pretty nice. Anyways, those are the 3 ways to get into a drift. And probably won't do too well. You probably spin out a few times like this, spin out a few times. That's because you're not catching your drift. So now we're getting to the second part, maintaining your drift. So when you do your entrance, you want to catch your drift to maintain it, right? So like this, as you can see, I got my rear end out, caught the drift, and now we're going. So how do you catch your drift? Well, that's actually pretty easy. Your wheel does it for you. That's why you have to have your force feedback set up perfectly. If your wheel doesn't counter steer for you fast enough and you're spinning out, up the force feedback. If it's too fast and it's canceling your drift, straightening you out, the force feedback is too high. You want to get it perfect for your sensitivity, or not your sensitivity, your steering angle. I'm at 720 degrees right now. It is a lot easier to drift at 720 degrees than it is 900. So you can turn that force feedback down a little bit. But that's how you do it with your force feedback, is it will counter steer for you automatically. If you see, I'm not restraintive of my wheel. Also keep that in mind. Don't be restraintive of your wheel. Don't hold it back. Let it do its thing. The only time you can be restraintive with your wheel, slightly, not 100% restraintive. You still have to be, slightly loose with it, but you can still, give it some nudges to maintain that drift, is when you caught the drift and you need to maintain it through a curve. That's when you can start being a little bit more restraintive with your wheel. But you want to be very light with your wheel. You want to let your wheel do most of the counter steering for you. So let's get up to speed. So when we get up to speed and we enter in a drift, if I slightly let go of my wheel, as you can see, it counter steered for me. Look at that. It steers for me, and it does it perfectly. If you set up your force feedback right, it will literally steer perfectly for you. See? So that's sick. And as you can see, the reason I spun out is I was being way too restrained with my wheel there. So as you can see, my wheel turns on its own. So you're gonna want to do that. You want to let go of your wheel. You don't want to, just hands behind your back. You still want to have your hands ready to catch it, right? So it's gonna take a little bit getting used to like letting your wheel do its thing. It took me a pretty while. I don't know about you guys. Everybody's different. Some people are better with other things, but it took me quite a minute to get used to the wheel doing its own thing. But when you can start, being restrained about it is when you catch that drift. So once you go in a drift, your wheel counter steers for you. Once you got that drift angle, you can start like nudging it. So your wheel is gonna counter steer all the way, getting you out the drift. And if you can see yourself straightening out, you want to basically steer your wheels more straight. So as you can see, my wheel, if you guys pay attention to my wheels in the front, they will counter steer all the way, turning the direction that I'm going, and will straighten me out. And as it's straightening me out, you can feel the force feedback as that's going out, right? So as you're getting straightened out and you see that you're straightening out, you want to fight against the force feedback slightly to get your drift maintained, but you still want to be loose with this. So you want to kind of go like this. If you look at my webcam, as you can see, I'm kind of pulling it and I'm letting it kind of go back as well to maintain that drift, because you won't be able to hold your thing perfect. You're gonna have to move a little to the right, a little to the left, counter steer more, counter steer less to maintain that angle. Let me show you. I'm not great with explaining, so that's my bad. So I'm trying my best here, but once you get into that drift, when I counter steer, as you can see, I'm not being restrained with my wheel. I'm letting it counter steer for me, but I'm also adjusting it. So when the counter steer strains my car up, I'm adjusting my wheel. And then when I see that my rear end is getting thrown out too much when I'm going to spin out, I let the force feedback, I let go of the wheel slightly for the force feedback to keep my car in that drift. So I'm not very restrained. If I only use a pull action, I don't let my wheel stay in the same place like this. If I let it, and I didn't let it counter steer, I spun out. I was too restrained with my wheel, basically. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be restrained of your wheel. And I just noticed my car tune is a little bit scuffed. I have a positive camber on my rear wheels. Oh my god. Anyways, that's how you maintain your drift. Once you get into that drift, you kind of let your wheel counter steer for you. Once you catch the drift, you'll basically catch your wheel. And you can see that's another example why not to be too restrained. If I was pulling my wheel back more than I should have just let it counter steer for me. But that's what happens if you're too restrained over your wheel. I can't stress it enough. Don't be restrained over your wheel. I spent so much time trying to learn how to drift, and I was just too restrained with my wheel. But yeah, as you can see, once you get cooperative with your wheel, you can drift pretty well. I don't know if I explained that well. If I did not explain it well, drop a comment how poorly I explained it. But don't be restrained of your wheel. If you have to adjust, then adjust. That's the only time you can be restrained against your wheel, is just slight adjustments, but not too tight. You still want some slip in your wheel. Wearing gloves actually helps have slip, because you'll have to clamp harder, and you can still have some clamp on it, but it's still slip because your skin is grippy with this, your wheel. But gloves, you can get some kind of soft fabric gloves that will be pretty slippery, which will help with drifting. But I use my wheel because my hands are always sweaty, so that extra sweat, I guess, gives it some slip. But it's not very good for the health of my wheel because it will get dirty. So not only will gloves help you have more like or less restraint over your wheel, they will also help you keep your wheel, you know, clean and tidy. So I do have to clean my wheel once in a while, wipe it down because of the sweat. But yeah, once you have learned how to maintain your drift, I would recommend just doing donuts, small donuts and then big donuts, because every curve is basically a portion of that donut, you know. So practicing just going donuts, you know, practice doing very wide donuts, very oval donuts, you know, very small donuts, you know, so oval donuts like a tight turn and then a wide turn, tight turn, all that stuff. So you can practice doing that. Obviously we'll only be spinning in one direction. So now the question comes up, transferring. Okay, so transferring in this game is really not that difficult. In other games like Assetto Corsa, it is quite difficult because I don't have an e-brake, you know, so I use a lot of clutch. But in this game, because you have that e-brake, you can transfer really easily, but you actually don't have to use your e-brake that much. You can literally just transfer without using your e-brake, which is pretty nice, but it's not very realistic. It is an arcade game though, so cut it some slack, you know. But let me show you how to transition your drift. So transitioning your drifts will be pretty difficult to explain, so bear with me, I'll try my best. So once you're drifting, let's say you want to shift to another side, you don't do that. So when you're drifting and you want to shift over to another side, let your wheel counter steer it for you. As you can saw, I kind of shifted my angle to a different way. So you want to counter steer 100%. So if I'm drifting like this, I'm not fully counter steering, but if I counter steer 100%, I can, you know, angle my car a different way. And you also don't want to be restrained of your wheel. You just want to restrain it to counter steer enough, but you don't want to be too rough with it. As you can see, I was too rough with it. Slight, you know, steering angle. So like this, let go of the wheel once you see your car shifting over, and then basically catch that drift and start doing your counter steer mechanism all again. So shifting your drift over, it's literally like entering a new drift. It's literally like doing this weight shift right here, entering a drift. It's really shouldn't be that difficult, because once you got entering a drift, you know, catching it and maintaining it, shifting is literally just or transferring or transitioning into a new angle or a different, you know, angle is basically like a way to enter a drift while you're already in a drift. You can use e-brake. You can e-brake, steer your way the other way, let go of your wheel, let it counter steer for you. Once you got that angle, catch the wheel, and that's literally pretty much it. It's kind of like going into a new drift. So yeah, drifting in this game is so easy. I can do it with one hand. Oh no. So yeah, transitions. Once you're ready to transition, counter steer, let go of the wheel. As soon as you see your car shift over a different way, so let me show you. Like this, once I saw my car, I let go of the wheel to catch the drift, you know, counter steer for me, and once I got that angle and I counter steered, I can catch my drift and then maintain it. So like this. And you want to be pretty early with the counter steer. So as soon as you see your car slightly angle, as soon as you see your car slightly angle in, you can start letting go of the wheel, and it will counter steer for you as it transitions. So like this, boom, just like that. And that's pretty much it. So this has been a really long video. I'm sorry about that, guys, and it took a really long time to export because my computer's not that fast. But uploading this video was no problem because I got that fiber internet. But anyways, if this video did help, you guys should drop that like. If this video didn't help, drop a dislike and comment below what I did bad so I can fix that maybe in another video. But I also will be doing other drift tutorials like in Assetto Corsa, and I'll probably do an insane drift tutorial on that as well, because I couldn't find a video anywhere explaining how to get my force feedback working properly in the game. It was working, but the problem with that force feedback in the game, it's not smooth. And I figured out how to get it smooth and work with you. So I will definitely be doing a tutorial video on that. It won't get views though, but that's alright. I guess I'll just keep uploading on my free time till I get some traction, you know, on YouTube. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna have to end the video here. If you guys do want other tutorials for drifting, any other game, you guys can probably hit me up in the comments, you know, drop a suggestion what game you guys need help drifting with, and I will get into the game. Even if it's a new game, I'm really good at approaching, you know, situation and figuring out a solution. You know, like in BeamNG Drive, I'm having issues, you know, drifting, so you know, I just figured it out on my own because I couldn't find any tutorial on YouTube that explained to me why my force feedback wasn't working. So I had to do it all on my own, but I'm getting really close to drifting in the game. But I will say it is incredibly difficult to drift in BeamNG. So it's gonna take a while until I get it. But anyways, I'm gonna have to end right here, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. And yeah, just peace. I really don't know what to do an outro, so we're just gonna stop the video here.